Hello and welcome to the Making Magic podcast. Magic is the art of intentional transformation. It's the belief that you have the power to light your own path in this world. And this podcast explores how that belief manifests itself through self care in modern culture. I'm Ariana, and with me is Denise, co founders of wellness company mythmagick. And today we'll be talking about self care as resistance. So, Denise, I have to ask you,
Yes.
what is one way that you practice self care this week?
I love that. I love that. That's a great question. So I actually recently got this journal that's called it's spiritual self care for Black women, and actually puts a it's like a planner, and it'll be like, what are you going to do for yourself this week? And it's extremely interesting, to start the week off like on a Sunday, and like not just plan out, oh, what I have to do for work, all this stuff, but like plan out like the fun stuff. So one of the things I do is I like to read. So like reading is like a form of my self care, and then also journaling. So that's what I'm working on. How about you?
I love that. Reading and journaling. I need to get into journaling. um, but let's see. One way that I practice self care this week. So I really enjoy music.
Okay.
And I use that a lot to kind of mirror my feelings, either like what I'm feeling in the moment or what I want to be feeling, like aspirational music.
Oh, okay.
So I take some time to listen to that, especially on the weekends while I'm like running around doing errands. I don't know if that counts, but it is a way for me to kind of like feel energized. I find that I use music a lot to like point me in the right direction emotionally.
So what's the last song that inspired you?
Oh my goodness. I don't know if this is like appropriate, but like
Of course it's appropriate.
Lotto's new song Lottery.
Oh, tell me about it. What is it about Lotto that gets you going?
I love Lotto. I love Lotto, but I mean, I think it's like basically in the moments where I might be feeling like I'm doubting myself
Hmm.
or I want that extra boost of like confidence and like women empowerment, I will listen to songs that are just about loving yourself
Yes.
and
Yes.
demanding your worth.
Yes.
Upbeat, up tempo. Um, I like that type of music when I'm in that kind of mood.
Well, I want to say this to people who might be listening. Let us know what song that you're listening to make you feel good, and like what are the artists that you feel like you resonate with, that kind of what Ariana just shared. And she is not lying when she tells you she loves music, because just to give you guys some context, we used to live together, and I know she likes, music, and same here too. So we are a big fan of kind of listening to, catching a vibe, you know?
Yes, that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
I need a lot of times I need music to catch the right vibe.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You just, you put in that mind state, like, I'm gonna go. I actually, unfortunately, or fortunately for my neighbors, I don't know, I got an Apple HomePod that I put in my bedroom, and I listen to like some crazy music at 8 in the morning. It's like, it's my year, we gonna go. Like, that's what I listen to at 8 a.m. in the morning.
I feel like I mean that's right on track. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, you need something to like pump you up, you know?
You do. Ooh, I love this conversation because first of all, no matter who you ask, they're going to give you something different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's also a good way to get ideas,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But this conversation that we're going to have, I'm really excited to have it. But we're kind of like moving in a very specific direction. And like I'm excited to get there in the conversation.
Okay, because I'm like, where's the direction? What is the path? I'm here for it. Take me on that journey, baby. Let's
I'm
go.
taking you on this journey,
Let's
okay?
go.
And it's a little bit, first it starts off with a history lesson, like,
Oh,
right?
oh,
So like what is self-care as resistance?
yes. Let's
Like
talk about
where
it.
did it come from? And then like moving to current day, how should we look at self-care as resistance? Is it different
Mm,
than it was before? Is it the same?
mm,
Has it grown in definition? Like
mm.
I just really want to get into that.
Okay. Well, let's go.
Before we
Oh,
get into it,
oh.
I want to share a word from our sponsor.
All right. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And that's Myth Magic. So, the Making Magic podcast is brought to you by Myth Magic, where luxury meets minimalism.
And
We've curated the finest products all in one place so your wellness rituals are relaxing, clean, and inspiring. Check out Myth Magic's line of skincare and other products at mythmagick.com. That is mythmagick.com. And now back to the episode.
I love it. Brilliant. Brilliant. You got it, girl.
All
Make sure
right.
you, and I'm going to just tell everybody, make sure you go check out Myth Magic, buy our stuff. Hello.
Okay. Quality, quality. All right. So now let's start things off with this history lesson, right?
Okay.
Okay. So the late 1970s and early 1980s brought self-care to the mainstream with individualized wellness and physical health. We saw explosions of exclusive members only health clubs and group aerobics, and they all put self care on the map during that time. But Black feminists like Audre Lorde made statements on self care as an act of resistance, which was uniquely different than any concept up until that point. And she famously said, caring for myself is not self indulgence, it is self preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. Now, reading these words, I feel like people who aren't necessarily as familiar with the concept of self care as resistance might say, "Whoa, that sounds really heavy." But I know that you've been studying this recently, and I wanted to get your perspective. Like when you first became aware of this concept as of self care as resistance, what were some of the first thoughts that went through your mind?
Um, Man, I think that's a really heavy loaded question, when you think about resistance, because there's so many layers to that. And to be real, we live in a world where Black women are cared for, right? So I think that is kind of been that big realization for me, where Black women are put at the bottom of the totem pole, like who's going to take care of us? So when you say, I'm going to do these things for myself, I'm going to like this shows up as resistance to, resistance to the typical society of the way things are set up. So I think that's the kind of like first like realization, and then understanding that like I'm not alone in this, right? Like
Mm,
all of the feelings that I've felt of like, man, I need some extra, I need care, I need to make sure that I am nurturing myself. And there's also a community of other people that feel that same way because of the way society has been set up here in the US. And so I think those are my first thoughts of when I started to get into the idea of self care as resistance.
yeah, I like all of what you said resonates with me. I think on first pass, it kind of sounds like really heavy
Mm-hmm.
because we have kind of been socialized. Eh, I don't want to speak for everyone, but when I think about myself and just growing up and becoming a woman in this age, self care has really been heavily commercialized, right? So, um, it's always about like buying the shiniest, newest like health product, especially directed at women. And they're kind of it's almost like you feel like you need to use something else or use something outside of yourself in order to engage in self-care. And that's not true.
No.
Number one. And I mean, the elephant in the room is we are a wellness brand, right? And we do sell tools that you can use to engage in self care. But let's not mix words. You don't need anything outside of yourself to practice self care. Let's just say that first. Um, but yeah, on first pass, it seems heavy. But when you think about it, and when you think about um, specifically Black women, Black people, and hardships that we face in the Black community, the idea became really interesting to me. Really, really, really interesting. Um, as using self care as like a political act. Um, and before I get into my second piece, I want to talk a little bit more about the history here. So, the Black Panther Party was one of the first community-based groups to introduce meditation,
Mm.
traveling health treatment, nutritional meals, and other prevention and health promotion programs in the Black community in Oakland. Um, Erica Huggins was a leader of the Black Panther Party and helped revolutionize self-care as an alternative solution to subpar healthcare offerings, something that Americans are still dealing with to this day. And following a shootout that Angela Davis had allegedly been connected to in August of 1970, the Black Panther Party leader spent over a year in jail awaiting trial and struggled with anxiety and depression during that time. And to address the conditions that she was in, she began practicing meditation and yoga and found these activities really effective in maintaining her mental health and well-being. And she had this instinct to shift her wellness practices to better address her mental and physical ailments. And she called this her radical self-care. And the way that she talked about it was this self-care was kind of essential for activists at the time who wanted to propel social justice forward, but it just takes a lot out of you, right? And so to combat this thought that, you know, Black women had to like carry this movement on their backs and not stop and never rest, was this idea of radical self-care. So a political act of resting, because, you know, the way she sees it and the way that many Black women see it is that there's so much pressure to take on so much. And it's coming from all directions, both inside and outside, right? And so the act of slowing down and the act of resting is resistance against that pressure. So that was very interesting for me to think about. And I think that a lot of people can resonate with that, because here we have a specific example of Angela Davis meditating in jail. So practicing mindfulness in a place of isolation, desperation, darkness. That is really powerful. But I think a lot of us have similar situations that we face. And I think it benefits us all to look at self-care as an act of resisting against those societal pressures, cultural pressures, whether they be based in our ethnicity, our gender, you know, whatever it may be. I think the concept is really interesting, and I think more people should learn about it.
Absolutely. I mean, I thank you for sharing that history because I frankly didn't know that. So I appreciate the research that went into that, and also to share with the people that follow us, right? Because I
Yes.
think it's super important to think about when you are in these structural institutions, how do you take care of yourself, right? So that you're not hurting your organs and hurting all of this other stuff. And we think about statistics of, you know, us and not really, you know, making it past a certain age. So I think like all of those tools like mindfulness, it is resistance, it is self-care, it is important. You need to do it.
Yes, it's really important. And so thinking about like, you know, that's an amazing origin story. I love
Mhm.
it. But bringing it back to present day, I think we saw an emergence of self care in 2020, right? Whether it was because of the pandemic or because of the Black Lives Matter protests, I think there were a lot of people who were just exhausted with the way everything was. Um, and so there was a lot of conversation about practicing self care. And simultaneously, you had a lot of amazing activists who were working daily um, uh, during the Black Lives Matter movement, hitting the streets, hitting the pavement. That takes a lot out of you. Also, you had people who were just witnessing this video content of Black men being murdered, and we were being inundated by it all over the media. And so there was also conversation about needing to step back and take a rest from that. And I know that I had so many conversations with friends and colleagues, Black friends and colleagues, who were divided on this topic because it was like, some people thought, I need to bear witness to this. I don't want to avoid it because this is something that's happening to our community every day. And I have the privilege of avoiding it, but not everyone does, right? So you have that group. And then you have another group that's saying, I completely understand that this is happening every day. And it's really important that we address it as a community and that we work toward a better future for Black men and us all. However, this is draining to me mentally and emotionally. I can't, open up my phone or turn on the TV every single day and watch people being killed. So I understand both of those sides to the argument. What are your thoughts on that, Denise?
I mean, I understand both sides too. Like, and I think, a lot of the issues that also came up were, and you hinted to that, is like, we as Black people got tired of also educating our allies, because that's not, like, yes, we need to work, better as a society, but like you said, it's draining to turn on to the TV and see all of this and then have to talk about it, and then you have to help somebody else to help to understand your plight. Like, it's a lot.
It is a lot. And that kind of takes me to my next part, which is what happens when you take on this burden
Hmm.
of not only being inundated with all of these really horrific images all over the media,
Hmm.
and messaging, but also teaching others, like taking on the burden of teaching others, and then also, hello, going to work every day, right, as if everything's fine. Like, I'm thinking about that meme where I think it's like a little dog who's like sitting at a desk, and then behind him, like, the house is burning and it's just like
Yeah.
everything's fine. I
Oh
mean,
my gosh. I remember that. Like, I'm like, everything's fine. No, it's not. Like, it's really not. And I'm trying to pretend like everything's fine, and that's taking a toll on me. And I think you did a great 360 there to say that what happens is you have to go into your practices of self-care, right? Of how do you hold yourself up in these spaces when you're expected to show up and be an ally, or help someone be an ally to this and that. And then also you're dealing with your own pain, right? You're experiencing stuff that's happening in the community, your brothers, your cousins, your aunts, all of those things. It's challenging. And I think, and it just goes into like grounding that. And I think what the challenge comes to, and I would imagine if I'm listening to this, well, what are the ways, like, what are more ways that we can take care of ourselves?
yes, absolutely. I think that's like definitely the next question that one would ask, and I would kind of answer that with, hold on, because I think there's a lot of answers that kind of reside on the surface, like when it comes to self-care, like, oh, okay, like, you need to go recharge, right? You need to go out in nature and recharge, spend a Sunday afternoon in the park, right? Or practice yoga, practice meditation. I know we talked about that earlier as a method of self care, but like if you notice, like a lot of the conversation around self care is really tied to this notion of like recharging, right? So it's like it's okay to be fully depleted, you know, Monday through Friday or whatever your work schedule is, right? It's okay as long as you recharge by doing this thing. But my question
Okay.
yes, my question is the resistance part of this self-care looking at self-care from a different lens, right? Like not something that you just do to recharge, but something that you practice literally all the time. Like you are always caring for yourself. And like what does that look like, you know, in a capitalist society where we work we work and then we come home and we try to fit everything in those hours or in those days where we're not working, right? I think that it means you need to be practicing self-care when it comes to your approach to work. So like that's something I want to talk to you about because what do you think is a good example of practicing self-care all the time?
Hmm. I think, I mean, yeah, I think self care is, you always have to be taking care of yourself, right? Like there's no, way where you walk through and you're not. I mean, you could, but you might not be doing anything, and that's not how I move. That's not how you move, and that's not how anybody around me moves, and I'm hoping y'all who are listening, y'all take care of yourself. But it is hard to think about how do you take care of yourself every day. And like what I'm finding, and I'm learning, I'm going through a personal sort of journey, is that I've had to become more in touch with my feelings and emotions and know how to name them. Because
Mm,
like sometimes it's like, you ask someone how do they feel, and they're like, good. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of different words to describe how you're feeling in a moment, right? And I think part of practicing self-care every day is acknowledging, giving your space room to feel.
mm-hmm,
Like it is okay to have feelings. Stuff happens, right? And it might make you sad. It might make you angry. It might make you this, but it's just, I think, like, so I guess what I keep on saying is acknowledging where you are at that moment. And once you're able to acknowledge where you are at that moment, then you can address things, right? If you have a stressful meeting at work, or you might go into a situation with somebody who might be stressful, you can take some time aside, do some breath work, do some meditation, just check in with yourself, tell yourself that, you believe that you can go forward, right? I think self care is also paying it forward and really trying to lead with kindness. I know it can be hard sometimes because, run into people that might not always have those same feelings, but I do think that at least the way that I look at life, I'd like to pay it forward and walk with like kindness. So those are some of the things of how I look at moving with self care every day. How about you?
I think that's perfect. I mean, the first thing, and you really spoke to this, so it's kind of redundant, but it's just making your mental wellness your top priority
Mm-hmm.
in every situation, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's work, friendships, family. Um, you should be taking steps every day to prioritize your mental wellness and also take account of, like you said, what your emotions are in any given moment. Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling low? Are you feeling, confused?
Yeah.
Are you feeling bewildered? Are you doubting yourself?
Mm.
Name it, right? Because if you can't name it, then you can't address it. And then another thing is, if your mental wellness is your top priority, there's no delay, right? And so if you're feeling anxious, there's not, I'll think about this next week, or I can't do this right now. I'll try to fix it tomorrow. No, because it's your top priority, right? So if you're feeling anxious, you address it now. What do you need to do right now. Um,
And I
and
want
so,
to, oh,
yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
to comment on that. And I think just to like addressing it and saying, okay, I feel anxious. And you said something like, you deal with it next week. Sometimes because you don't have that language, you're dealing with it in a very unhealthy way, right? Whatever your vice may be, because you haven't necessarily allowed yourself to name what it is. So I'm doing this and I feel anxious and now I'm smoking 25 cigarettes a day. I mean, I know people don't smoke cigarettes, but I'm just saying, just like you said, name it.
Name it. Um, the next thing is, because I think for a lot of people, a lot of their um, uh, mental issues that they deal with, whether it be anxiety, depression, burnout, insomnia, a lot of it actually comes from their job, right? It stems from their work. And so my thought here is to you maintain control over your career, right? And that's something that honestly I'm working on, right? It's not something that I can say, oh, I figured it all out, but it is something that I understand is very important. I want it to be important to me. So like just to give some historical context here, like I have been someone who's highly driven by achievement, right? So just wanting to get to the next thing, the next rung on the ladder. And so I feel like it's kind of like a facade, right? Because you think that you're in control, but in actuality, because so much of your self-worth is embedded in your career, you are actually not in control. Like your employer is in control, your manager is in control, your coworkers are in control, right? You're not in control because you've given it over to all of these other people and to this company to decide whether or not you are worthy. And that's toxic. Let's
Very,
all decide
very.
today
We're not
to,
doing that.
we're not doing it. We're not doing it. We're leaving it behind. Okay.
Bye
And
bye. I am not my
yes,
job. Okay. I saw this I went to this talk at Chicago booth and there was this lady there and she said something that was just she was very funny and she was talking about her boundaries at work, right? And a lot of people use different terminology. Somebody said they had bubble time where they just take the time to themselves and meditate and stuff like self-care. But one thing I thought was just so like clear about one of the ladies who spoke was that she was like, after 5 o'clock I forget I have a job. Like she's like, I don't remember there's a job until 9 a.m. rolls around and I get an email. I was like, wow, like she really just that's how she moves, and that's like part of her practice.
I think that's perfect. Like that would be my next thing on the list is maintaining your boundaries. Like you
Yeah.
have to have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And just think about this. Literally, the United States is the most productive country on the planet. Okay. We have a lot of wiggle room here.
It is. It's never that deep.
Nope.
Unless maybe you're like a surgeon, like I do think you know, but like unless you're like in the medical profession, like chill out.
Completely agreed. So that's the next point. Yeah. Setting healthy boundaries
Mm-hmm.
and avoid self shaming.
Hmm.
So just remember, you're not weak or selfish when you refuse to subject yourself to unhealthy demands, whether it be from your job, from your family, whatever it is. You shouldn't feel ashamed if you just can't do it and you don't have it in you, right? Like,
Funny fact, y'all know how much I had to like get over the fact that Ariana would tell me no, and I'd be like, "Can we go out here? Can we do this?" She'd be like, "No, no." But I see it now. It's establishing your boundaries and knowing what you are comfortable with. Like, where's your energy level? Some people don't want to go out 7 days a week. Like that's a certain type of personality. I get it now. But like you said, like being able to establish those boundaries.
yes. Fun fact about myself and Denise, I am an introvert and Denise is an extrovert. And so Denise likes to go out a lot and I enjoy going out, okay? Like
She does. She does.
I have a good time while I'm out. It's just that it takes a lot of energy out of me. And so in the days where I don't have the energy, I just can't. Like I just can't like go out and be around all these different people and have to like, smile and laugh and kiki and haha. I just want to like stay home and like eat my favorite snack and like chill out in front of the TV or watch YouTube. I am a huge YouTube person. Um but
That
yeah,
is okay. Don't let your friends shame you about it. We're obviously here clearly talking about some personal dynamics, but like, like just being okay, like hearing your friends where they're at.
yes. Um I loved this conversation. I
Same.
thought it was really, really fun. I'm glad we kind of were able to fit everything in. We
Mhm.
went on a journey about self care as resistance.
We sure did.
Denise, do you have any last thoughts?
I mean, I really don't. I feel like I'm just gonna echo what you said and saying that this was a really fabulous conversation. I'm curious about what other people think of what they've heard. So like comment, let us know. Are there specific topics you want to lean into more? That's what I really want to know.
Yeah, I am so curious about how people are going to receive this. But definitely let us know if anything, resonated with you. If anything came up that you want us to kind of go into a little bit deeper, we would love to do that. But that brings us to the end of this episode. We hope it was really inspiring and helped you to think a little bit more deeply about radical self care. As always, thank you for listening to Making Magic. And if you enjoyed our show, please rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening to us on right now. If you're watching us, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you next time.